All right, I'm back. Now we're going to read chapter 11 and 12. 11 is called Not As Bad As You Think. Lily met me at my locker after school. Hey, she said, tossing her glossy black hair over one shoulder. How've you been? Okay, I said. It'd been about a week since Potato had been adopted, and despite my plans to interact with people more, I had retreated into my turtle shell and was still spending most of my afternoons at Orphan Paws, meeting new pups and trying very hard not to love them too much. I'd also made a point not to ask Lily about Potato or school, even though I was so curious to know how he was doing. I was worried that if she told me any details that I'd burst into tears or something, or just get angry all over again. So, Lily went on brightly, I don't miss kickball, but I miss hanging out with you on the field. Me too, I admitted, and felt my spirits lift a little. Apparently it was Allie who complained to her parents about the kickball games. Can you believe it? Lily widened her eyes. Austin and those guys are really mad, but of course they won't stay mad at her since she's so pretty. Isn't that always the way it is with guys? She rolls her eyes. But oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm probably talking too much. No, not at all, I said, amused at her rambling. I like people who talk a lot. My best friend Mel talks constantly. Oh, Melody Gray, I remember her. She was nice. I mean, I'm sure she still is. She moved, right? I nodded. Then, thinking of Mel and one of the fun things we used to do, I added, do you maybe want to come to Max's, the diner, with me after school sometime? They have really good milkshakes. Sure, Lily didn't hesitate. Okay, well, how about today? I asked. You've got to get out into the world of people, I could hear Mel telling me, rooting me on, my dad and Lori too. Lily's face fell. I can't. I'm going to the basketball game. And she smiled. Hey, you should come with me. I'm sure my expression gave away my lack of enthusiasm for a basketball game before I even opened my mouth. But Lily wasn't finished. Oh, please come with Cecilia. I'll always go because of my brother, you know. But I sometimes get bored just sitting with my parents. All right, I told her, even though the idea of seeing more of Eric Chung was not appealing. What time does it start? Sports functions were definitely not my thing, but my thing seemed to consist of only caring for dogs and being a metaphorical turtle. So I figured it would do me good to give this a try. Lily squealed happily. Yay! My mom's driving me to the game. We can pick you up. Say at 6. You can text me your address. Sure, except I don't actually have a phone. No worries, Lily said, pulling her own phone out of her pocket. I'll just enter it in mine, and then we'll be set. It's 411 Maple Street, I told her. Okay, see you then. Lily waved goodbye cheerfully and walked down the hall. I headed for the door, too, walking fast. I need to leave the shelter early to go to the game. I'll have less time to spend with my Potato, I thought. Then realized that Potato wouldn't be there anyway. Sadness washed over me. When I got to Orphan Paws, Mitch was minding the front desk. Hey, Mitch, where's Lori? I asked. She took a few puppies over to Dr. Preble to get them checked out. Okay, did she leave anything for me to do? Mitch shook his head. Nope, she said you could have the day off. I believe her exact words were, she needs to be a kid for a change. He winked. I laughed. I'm actually going to a basketball game tonight with my friend Lily. It felt good to say the words, my friend. Mitch smiled. Nice, sounds fun. That remains to be seen, I said doubtfully. Mrs. Chung picked me up in a shiny silver car. As I stepped out into Aunt Pam's driveway, I looked into the car's dark windows, trying to figure out if Eric was there, but it was just Lily. I felt a wave of relief. Lily scrambled out of the passenger seat and joined me in the back seat. I'm so excited you're coming, she said. I'm glad you're going with Lily too, Cecilia, Mrs. Chung said from the front seat as we drove off. Mr. Chung and I usually go, but we have a work function to go to tonight. We'll be there after the game to pick you up. Don't be late coming out to the parking lot after, Lily, she added, then smiled fondly at her daughter in the rearview mirror. Lily giggled. I'm almost always late. It's a flaw. I felt a little pang of sadness, seeing how close Lily and her mom were, and apparently she and Eric were pretty tight, too. It made me think about my mom, and I wondered what she was up to now in her new life without me and Dad. We drove along towards the school, and then I couldn't hold the question anymore. How's Potato? I blurted out. Lily glanced at me. I wondered if she realized it was the first time I'd asked about the puppy all week. He's so cute, she said, but Eric hasn't let me play with him. Well, Potato needs to rest so he's fully recovered in time to be trained for the show, Mrs. Chung explained, changing lanes. Trained for the show? The words made my stomach clench. Oh, I said softly. I'd been right, asking about Potato. Imagining him playing with Eric was just making me feel even sadder. I'm really sorry you can't have pets where you live, Lily said. It sounded like she was picking her words carefully. Me too, I said, swallowing past the lump in my throat. You have no idea. Meanwhile, we're Pet Central, Lily said with a sigh. We have 7 dogs. It's so chaotic. All the barking. I laughed. I don't mind some barking. Mrs. Chung dropped us off at the school, and I told myself not to dwell on thoughts of Potato. I thanked Mrs. Chung for the ride. Then Lily and I walked into an almost empty gym. Are we early? I asked Lily. Just enough to get good seats, she answered. Is there really that much to see? I asked. Well, there's the game, she said, sounding amused by my questions. I'm sure something will happen at halftime, too. Halftime? There's no intermission? I looked at my watch, wondering what I'd gotten myself into. Lily laughed, but not in a mocking way. There's halftime intermission. It's for, like, Broadway shows, I laughed, too. She sat down experimentally on a bleacher, then frowned and moved over a few feet. This is good. Lily patted the bleacher beside her, and I sat. Have you seriously never been to a basketball game? I shook my head. Not much for the sports, you know. I thought you hated them too. Well, as long as I don't have to participate. We're strictly talking spectating here. It's still sports, I pointed out. Just give it a chance, Cecilia. It might not be as bad as you think. Okay, I realized I'd been sitting with my arms crossed, which I'd read online meant that I was feeling closed off. I guess I'd just been anti-sports since forever. My dad actually used to teach PE. He tried really hard to make me athletic when I was little, and it was like, let's just say the experiment failed. Lily cocked her head to one side. I can see where that would make you pretty anti. I think I can kind of understand. You know, being the twin sister of a basketball star who runs away when balls fly towards her, she added, smiling. I guess you probably do get it, I said, smiling back. People were starting to come into the gym, and I soon saw that a good chunk of our grade was walking in. So, hey, Lily, does everyone come to basketball games? Pretty much. How did I not know that? She did that thoughtful head tilt pause for us again. I think maybe you've been in your own bubble, sort of, with the shelter and everything. I realized in that moment she was right. Lily Chung was surprisingly insightful. I watched as Allie Cross and a gaggle of other popular girls sat down in the bleachers. They waved to Lily, and she waved back. Do you want to sit with them, I asked, feeling a wave of dread. Lily still always sat with these girls at lunch and walked with them between classes. I assumed she must prefer to sit with them at games. Lily shrugged. It's okay. She dropped her voice and glanced to me. Honestly, I could use a little break from them. I mean, they're my friends, but sometimes, she trailed off, then whispered, they can be a little snobby. I nodded, relieved that it wasn't just me and Mel who had observed that. Lily flicked her hair out of her eyes. Just gets a little annoying sometimes how Allie always has to be the queen of her, you know. Last year, she and Eric dated, so that was especially annoying. Right. I glanced over at Allie, who was looking at her compact mirror and applying lip gloss. Why did I feel a flash of jealousy? The bleachers were filling up fast, and the music had been playing even got louder. I realized the game was about to start. The cheerleaders started running onto the floor. One of them did some kind of flip, and I held my breath, but she landed perfectly, her smile still in place. The whole group did a cheer and then ran off to the side. 2 of the girls held up a big paper banner, and the players started running in. The first one to bust through the paper was Eric Chung, and he did it with an energy that had everyone going wild. The crowd was already on their feet and cheering him on, even though he hadn't actually done anything yet, except for breaking paper and waving his arms around some more. That's quite an entrance your brother just made, I said. I told Lily. She rolled her eyes. Yeah, he gets pretty big head on game days, she said, smiling. Along with the team, Eric started warming up, dribbling and shooting for the basket. But unlike the other players, he smiled up into the adoring crowd and waved. Eric Chung could probably be the president of the United States someday, I decided. I mean, my brother's sweet, Lily was saying, but sometimes it's just a tiny bit aggravating how he's so good at everything. Eric Chung? Sweet. I wanted to scoff instead. I said calmly, I can see that. Being his twin can be tough, Lily added with a sigh. I can imagine, I told her, meaning it. I felt like I managed to disappoint my dad on a regular basis, even without having a perfect sibling. A buzzer sounded, and I jumped a little. I heard Lily giggle beside me. The game started, and Eric threw the ball and made a basket within the first few seconds. Almost everyone stood up, including me, since Lily was pulling me by the sleeve, and cheered loudly. Between the loud music and the excitement of the crowd, I started to forget that I hated basketball. Right after Eric scored, a freakishly tall guy on the other team sank his own basket, and the points were tied. The super tall kid and Eric seemed pretty tightly matched. The score kept going back to tied. This made the crowd even louder and more prone to stand up every time we scored. Then Eric did something, and there was a referee involved, and according to the Pearson crowd, what the referee did was wrong. What happened? I asked Lily. They called Eric for traveling, but he wasn't. Well, that stinks, I said, and Lily smiled at me. The very tall visiting team kid got to make a free shot, and everyone on the other side started making noise to distract him. I joined in. Lily gave me a surprised look and then continued booing. The kid missed, and everyone cheered triumphantly. I didn't know much about sports, but I had a feeling that if my dad were there, he'd have shaken his head and said something about bad sportsmanship. But the referee really had been wrong, so surely we were justified in distracting tall kid. I sat back down on the bleachers. Wait, what was happening to me? Did I like watching sports now? The music started again. Intermission, Lily explained, grinning. I laughed. The cheerleaders ran out into the middle of the floor and did a perfectly synchronized dance. I wondered then what it must be like to be so good at something everybody could see that everybody liked. I mean, I gave a mean flea dip, but that would never be cause for applause. The players were running back onto the court. Eric again looked into the crowd and waved at a couple people. He ran right by us and stopped when he saw Lily, giving her a big smile and a high five. Hi, Cecilia, he said, smiling at me, too, before running on. Something about Eric saying hi to me made me feel less like an outsider who called halftime intermission. It also gave me a queasy feeling in my stomach that I couldn't quite interpret. The rest of the game went by in a blur, with our team losing by just 6 points. I was surprised to actually feel disappointed. I watched Eric, along with the rest of the team, walk down the line and shake hands with the boys from the other school, who had won. Some of the guys from my school looked pretty angry, and they didn't seem very interested in shaking hands, but Eric smiled and gave each guy a firm handshake, like he was already running in the election I predicted for him someday. Lily and I waited while the gym cleared out. Mrs. Chung was driving the twins and me home after the game. When Eric finally emerged from the locker room, freshly showered, Lily gave him a hug. He then turned to me. Thanks for coming, Cecilia, he said. It was fun. I'm sorry that the team didn't win, I told him, cringing at my sudden inability to use words. It's okay. It was a close game. It was, I agreed. An awkward silence fell between us. How's Potato? I asked. Lily and Mrs. Chung had already updated me, but I needed something to make conversation. He's good, Eric replied. He left it at that, but his tone suggested he wanted to say more. But before either of us could say another word, Lily interrupted, checking her phone. Mom's waiting. We should go. I followed the twins out the parking lot and climbed into the back seat with Lily. As Mrs. Chung drove, Lily told her about the game, with Eric adding a few details. I looked out the window at the dark and quiet town. Lily's words came back to me. She told me to give a game a chance, that it might not be as bad as I thought, and it wasn't. In fact, I think I actually had fun. Was that the same true for her brother? Maybe Eric wasn't as bad as I thought. I wondered as Mrs. Chung pulled up in front of Aunt Pam's house. Maybe I've been wrong about more than just basketball. If Eric was kind of a nice guy, all the better, I told myself as I waved goodbye to the twins and shut the car door. I didn't mind being wrong if it meant things were better for Potato. That was the only reason I cared anyway. Wasn't it? Dun, 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 dun. Wasn't it?